What's up, everybody, and welcome to the Golf 360 podcast. I'm the host, Pete Popovich. So you may be wondering what Golf 360 is, and I came up with it and the name after spending over 30 years and a lifetime in golf, in and around the game, in all facets and levels, and I have come in contact with, become friends with, learn from, pick the brains of, etc., a bunch of different people within the industry, outside of the industry, all who have exceptional knowledge, information, experiences, etc., to pass along to make me better in the game when I was playing it or outside the game in the business that I've been involved in on the teaching side, etc. So because there were so many different people that I had access to and was fortunate enough to have access to, I thought, if this is an all-encompassing podcast, why not, and it's golf-related, why not call it Golf 360, so hence the name. The one thing that I've found out about all these people that are going to be guests on the show is they had two common denominators. One, they were very highly accomplished and exceptional at what they did in their field. The second was they were more than willing to share their knowledge, their experiences, their pearls of wisdom with me and many others who were more than willing to learn and improve themselves, be it in their games, their businesses, their life, or what have you. So I hope that you're going to enjoy listening to the show, to each and every one of the guests that I have on the show, and that you're able to utilize information that they give, whether it's a story or an experience or what have you, so that you can continue to improve at your game and at life. This podcast is brought to you in part by Old South Golf Links. A short ride across a bridge from Hilton Head Island is one of the area's finest golf courses and a hidden treasure. Set up on towering pines and ancient oaks with sweeping marsh vistas, truly makes Old South Golf Links a one-of-a-kind golfing experience. The Clyde Johnson design was named one of the top 10 new public courses when it opened, and it also takes full advantage of the natural beauty of the Low Country. Old South is a fun and unique challenge for golfers of every skill level and a favorite of both locals and visitors. Whether it's your first time here or you're a regular, you'll be treated and feel like family. From the bag drop to check-in at the fully stocked pro shop with both men's and women's apparel, to breakfast or lunch before or after your round, the staff is always ready and willing to help. Experience for yourself why Old South is one of the premier golf courses in the Hilton Head area and why it will quickly become a favorite of yours too. Visit them in person or online at www.oldsouthgolf.com, or to make it tee time, simply call the pro shop at 843-785-5353. Hey, all you junior golfers, or anyone that coaches a junior or has a youngster, whether it's a child of yours, niece, nephew, neighbor, what have you, that's a junior golfer and they really have a lot of promise. They have a lot of serious game and they're wanting to play golf at that next level, meaning the collegiate level. Then you're really going to want to listen to what my guest has to say today, because not only did he play on a national championship team as a student athlete, he also coached a college team to a national championship. His name is Conrad Ray. He's a good friend of mine, and he is also the director of men's golf at Stanford University. So we get into a lot of different things in today's discussion. Most of it revolves around the college experience, how kids, junior golfers can get a college scholarship, what it takes, what's expected of them as a student athlete, and then the sacrifices and the hard work that goes into making them productive members of the team and preparing them for that next level, whether they go into the business world or pursue a professional playing career. Conrad also speaks to the differences in college golf from when he was a student in the mid-90s and when he played with fellow teammates Notah, Begay, and Tiger Woods. We compare that to when he returned about a decade later to be the men's head golf coach, and then how both those eras relate to today, the similarities, the differences, etc. We also talk a little bit. Conrad was nice enough to speak to his recruiting and coaching philosophies and what he and other top coaches around the country look for in up-and-coming junior stars and what they want those kids to be good at if they're going to play big-time college golf. So this discussion is packed with a bunch of great information from one of the best college coaches out there. And I'm sure everyone listening, whether you're a junior, you're a coach, or you're the parent You're going to learn something and take a lot of good things away from what Conrad has to say. So without further hesitation, let's jump right into the interview. All right, we've got Conrad Ray, head men's golf coach at Stanford University. Conrad, thank you so much for being on the show.
You bet, Pete. Well, great joining you today. It's fun to talk a little golf.
You guys have the spring season already underway. How's the team looking so far this year as you come to the close of the year? You got another national championship that you guys might be bringing home?
Yeah, we're working towards that. It's definitely a long season for any college golf team. We start in early September and work through the whole entire year, really. And now's when it starts to heat up a little bit. And we kind of use the mantra all the time that we're always preparing for NC2As. And I've had some years where we've come out of the gates hot and won tournaments early, and then it starts to simmer a little bit. And we've had teams much like this one that we have this year, where we've maybe had a little bit of a slower regular season, but it feels like the momentum's starting to move the right direction and hopefully spiking as we head towards NC2As at the Blessings in Arkansas in late May, early June.
Awesome. So I got plenty of questions on the collegiate side, but I wanted the viewers, I've known you for almost 15, 20 years now, so I know how great of a guy you are, but if we can just back up and let people get to know you a little bit. So I got a couple of questions on that, if that's okay with you.
Yeah, you bet. Well, I've got you snowed so far. No, I'm just joking, but yeah, good memories of us being together back in the day in Hilton Head and playing a lot of golf and trying to figure the whole thing out.
Yeah, I miss those days. So you, how did you get started in the game?
Well, for me, golf was always something that, as a kid I did for fun. I grew up in the Midwest in a small town. My dad was in the food business, worked for Hormel Foods for over 40 years, and he was a big golfer, and my grandfather played. And so I just got started basically going out on Saturday mornings with my dad and got to drive the cart and maybe hit a few shots when I was 6 or 7 and looked up to him and how he was able to play. He's in his 70s now and still is, he's a high double-digit handicap. He's kind of a, high 70s, low 80s shooter and still plays really well. But being passionate about golf has always been something my family's done. And, in the Midwest, the seasons are shorter. So by the time the snow melted in the springs, I was ready to do something different than head to the hockey rink or the football field. So just really lucky to grow up in an environment where golf came easy. What I mean by that, not easy to me, but just easy to access. In the town I was in, Austin, Minnesota, we had a great 18. We had 3 golf courses actually and it was only less than 20,000 people. But I grew up at a place called Austin Country Club, and it was a great little push-up green, 18-hole oak line course, and you really had to hit it to be able to shoot a good score. So between spending a million hours at Austin Country Club and taking some good lessons from some great pros like Dave Bonella and Mike Hazley and Tim Duran over the years, a few names that are part of my past, I just love the game, and it's always been part of something that I've done, even though I did play a bunch of other sports and was serious about academics, and I just am super thankful of what the game's given me over the years.
When did you realize that golf was your sport, your thing you were going to do?
Well, I don't know. I think I always tell this funny story about I always have loved it. I always felt like golf to me was just something that I did for enjoyment, not something that was going to be my career or something that I was going to compete professionally at. I thought that, in the summers in the Midwest, it was just something I could do to hang out at the club and play with my friends and goof off and enjoy it. And I think that some of that's actually lost these days amongst the junior golfers that we recruit and talk to. But nonetheless, for me, golf was just something I always loved to do. And I was really serious about playing college football as I went through my high school years. But I had a great defensive line coach, a guy named Randy Smith back in Austin that had played at the Division I level. And he called me in his office one day, I think he was a junior in high school, and he said, Conrad, you're working really hard. You're a leader on the team. You've got some great stats in high school, but I have to tell you one thing. He said, you're really skilled, but you run in one place too long. And so it took me a second to register what he was saying. But but the fact that I didn't have the speed, maybe wasn't tall enough to play at the Division I level, I quickly realized, hey, I want to play at I want to play something at a high level. And so on a whim, I took a chance and sent a bunch of letters out in the world of college golf, and everyone sent me back the form reply saying that we're not interested, other than the coach at Stanford University, Wally Goodwin at the time. And here I am I didn't even know what the SAT test was. We only took the ACT, and he's telling me I need to take the SAT a couple more times and apply to school. And if I get in, I might have a chance at a walk-on spot, because he wasn't really recruiting anyone, loading up for the infamous Eldrick Tiger Woods to arrive the next year. And that's kind of all I needed to hear, and so I got really serious about it, and I knew I loved to play, but I knew I needed to get a lot better. And so kind of hitting the fast forward button from my sophomore, junior year in high school to the time I graduated, 4 or 6 years later at Stanford, my curve, I think, steepened a lot. And I'm thankful to have some great people to help me along that way. And then for me, I was just like, gosh, I love what I do. I was playing pretty well here at Stanford, and I saw my teammates like Notah, Begay, and Casey Martin, and a few of these guys having success. And obviously Tiger was doing Tiger things. And I said, why can't I give it a shot and see what would happen? And that's what led me to a career in professional golf for almost 8 years. Getting into coaching.
So you're a freshman on the 93-94 team that won a national championship. What was that like? It's enough for most people to have their first college year, and it's overwhelming. But you walk in, you're not only a freshman, you're almost halfway across the country, and you guys win a national championship. I mean, was it overwhelming?
Yeah.
Was it great? Can you kind of speak
to that? It was overwhelming, but yeah, I was so lucky. I felt like I'd won the lottery. I came out here, and it's the middle of January, and there's girls out walking on campus with shorts on, and there's sunshine, and the days actually were, the sun stayed out past 3 p.m., so I was like, gosh, I realized pretty quickly that Stanford was a dream place. I didn't know what I was getting into, to be frank, but I arrive. I'm the only freshman on the team. We have this world-class team that was duking it out with Oklahoma State that year. Ultimately, we won the national championship, but it was an amazing experience. And it was pretty humbling at the same time. Like I kind of knew I wasn't too bad at reading the room, and I realized pretty quickly that all notions of how good I was need to go out the window, and it just needed to get to work. And the idea of being thrown in the deep end is really holding true, So I tried to spend as much time as I could around guys like Notah and Casey, and those guys really mentored me and helped me a lot. And then our coach gave me chances that I probably didn't deserve, sticking me in as an individual in certain events, or taking Tiger's place when he was the next year as he's going off to the World Amateur or the Masters and different things. And I was just kind of like, okay, soak it up, and just see how good you can get. And right. I also had to I remember this distinctly, and I talk about this with my guys on the team now, but I had a moment there where I really thought, and I was a very good student. I'd never really gotten anything worse than an A in high school. And I took chemistry my freshman year, and I failed the first 2 midterms. And I called my mom about in tears, thinking, wow, this is all great, but when you fail school, like, they send you home, So I was thinking I was done. And but that moment, I kind of realized kind of a life lesson that, if you work hard at something, it doesn't mean you're always going to be successful. And you have to really pick your battles and be good at what you do choose to do. And I knew that for me, academics at Stanford was going to be really a great thing, but I was never going to win a Nobel Prize in chemistry, And right. So I just realized, I think back to that moment, how, it wasn't really a pivot. It was just a change in my thinking about how you just really need to figure out what you love to do and be great at it.
What were some of the things freshmen had to do to kind of earn their way into the team circle, so to speak?
Well, we had times have changed too, right? I mean,
right.
Nowadays, it was 20 years ago, but yeah, there was definitely some freshman duties. I took a lot of abuse, in a good way. But I had to carry the luggage. I had to pick the range. You know, if a senior asked you to go get him lunch at McDonald's, you were in your car going. You didn't ask questions. Nowadays, if you ask one of my freshmen to do that, they might turn you in. But you know, I think the big thing was that we definitely had a culture of leadership here. I often look back to in my time and try and use that to think about how I manage my team now. And it's interesting because I do think that if a coach is too forward and too direct and too overwhelming, that you sometimes decrease the leadership opportunities amongst the kids you have on the team. You know, Coach Goodwin, at times we were frustrated, but he really gave us a lot of rope to figure it out ourselves. We didn't have a ton of team practices. He definitely kept tabs on us all, and he definitely was tracking on how we were doing. But there was a certain measure of him treating us like men, and that came through and shined through a lot when you looked at the leadership that some of those older guys provided. You know, Brad Lanning, who's now the assistant coach at Oregon with Casey. Brad was a fifth-year senior, and I think about how you don't really realize it at the time, but how much all the younger guys looked up to him for what we should be doing, where we should be, how we should be thinking about things, and that was pretty powerful in that whole group. And but as freshmen, yeah, I mean, you know, a lot of fun memories. I just not all of them probably worth talking about on the podcast today, but a lot of fun and a lot of stuff that those guys held true to the culture of the team, and that was accountability and working hard. And you'd earn your stripes as a freshman, that's for sure.
So if I remember right, your senior year, but 96-ish, you were the team captain, right?
I was captain in 96, 97, finished in spring of 97. I still feel bad about that, actually. That was a year that Tiger won the NCAA championship individually at the honors course in Chattanooga. And he had 3 rounds in the 60s, shot 80 the final round, and still won by 3 shots over Rory Sabatini. So it gives commentary on how difficult the course was that week. I around the honors at the time as a senior, I felt like I had a pretty good week, and if I broke 75, I think most people felt that way. You'd had a heck of a round, and we had a great team. Joel Kreibel was on that team, Dave Garcia, myself, Jerry Chang, who's been a longtime friend of Tiger's, and Tiger led the charge, but the troops behind him, myself included, probably didn't have their best week. And I think if we would have been able to make a few more putts, we would have had another championship on our hands.
What did you learn about leadership in that role? I mean, here you are, you got the number 1 amateur in the world, but you're the team captain. So not particularly to Tiger, but just as the captain in general, where you're looked to as the leader.
Yeah, no, It was. I will tell you, it was hard, right? I think the other thing you realize in that situation is leadership's hard. When Coach was telling me that I was going to be responsible if guys missed workout, not them. It's on me, and that's hard, right? And especially when you're 19, 20, 21, it's like herding cats sometimes. I mean, there's no holding punches that, college kids like to have fun, so if guys aren't showing up at practice or working hard, or we were just starting to kind of scratch the surface of workouts. That was back in the day, Tiger had a knee issue, kind of a cyst behind his knee, and he was doing some rehab, and there was a wonderful trainer here, a guy named Tim Eakins, and Tim and Tiger struck up a strong relationship, and Tiger, we were all just dumbfounded because Tiger started doing squats and, working out a bunch. And we were like, why are you doing that? We're still in the business of like cardio and step aerobics, and I'd really like to think that Tiger, that in that moment, that year or so that he started getting into that, we were right underneath our noses. We were seeing the transformation of the game in some form. And, and so it was, but being a captain in that mix was a responsibility I held at a really high level, and I think it did help me, further down the road, and now as a coach appreciate, that leadership matters, and especially if you want to be successful in a team dynamic like we have here at Stanford Golf.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people forget that you're dealing with kids, right? Teenagers and early 20s, and that transition from living at home and teen life to now being on their own. And like you said, your former coach had given you guys that leeway to be responsible men. And there is a little bit of a learning curve in that.
Totally. It's easy with daughters myself now. I mean, I want to make sure that they accomplish what they want, and it's easy as a parent to kind of do everything for them. And our little microcosm of giving us some leash was Wally, saying, "Hey, you guys figure it out," and I thank him for that. I at the time, we all thought we didn't know what was really going on, right? You just kind of show up every day, but
No, you just think you know what's going on. You're 20.
Yeah, and well, and the other thing I would bring up too is that I always tell our guys this, and I think it holds true, is that there's definitely, Wally always told us this too, is that Coach Goodwin, that there's a difference between book smarts and street smarts, and actually the book smart people sometimes are the worst when it comes to street smarts. Right. And so that's the thing that I think in today's day and age, we celebrate academics and degrees and all of these different things, but to get stuff done and to accomplish success, I think a lot of times it's the doing part, it's not the thinking part. And so coach ingrained some of those great lessons for us, I think, in a team that, we had some great success on the course, but really we grew up while we were here. And so super thankful for him, and it definitely gives pause for me as a coach to think about that as I guide my guys through this whole thing.
Cool. So you go on, you're the captain, you graduate, so you go on to a playing career. Best I could check.
Yeah.
Because I remember you played the Nationwide quite a bit back when you were living in Hilton Head area. So you played, I think, 61 Nationwide events, and then the 05 Open at Pinehurst. It might seem obvious that, that would help, if he has that experience in a college level. But can you kind of speak to some of the things that playing as a pro for so long has helped you with the guys you have playing for you now?
Yeah, I mean, it was 60. I always tell people my pro golf career, I was in the twilight of a mediocre career for 7 years. I was trying really hard. I think I felt like I was always getting better. I loved and realized that I loved the process of playing pro golf. As weird as this sounds, it was exciting for me to go on a road trip for 3 or 4 weeks and explore a new town, meet new people. I played better golf when I felt like it was that way. It wasn't a drag. And I think that's at the heart of being a successful touring pro nowadays. I think I see guys, my own peers even, that your mindset shifts and changes as things go on in your life, whether that's financial stress and strain, whether, family, being married, all those things in terms of a successful pro. Pro golf is way different than amateur golf, no matter what anyone says, because of all that extra stuff. But yeah, I had a great time and the chances I had to play on the Nationwide, which is now the Web.com tour. In and amongst all those events, I was playing on the Canadian tour, did some traveling in Asia and South America, trying to earn an honest buck, and had some great weeks. Had a bunch of years where I was able to definitely pay all my bills and maybe make a little bit of money. But then, you realize at a certain point that if you're not top 50 or 100 in the world, it's a really hard existence. And it doesn't take any away from guys that are outside of that category. It's just that for me, I was like, okay, what else is out there? I started to think about what else I might do. And so that's, kind of what took me to coaching. I also got married. I met my wonderful bride, Jennifer, in Hilton Head. She's a native Lexington, Kentuckian, and she'd spent a bunch of time in Hilton Head. So we met each other there and married. I always tell people my first year as a pro, I was on the road for 31 or 32 weeks, and that's not a great first impression in a young marriage. But my wife's a champ, and she understood what I was trying to do. I was still chasing my dream, and but I think you realize that that the playing pro golf is really tough, and for me, I don't really ever think about or remember the scores. I remember a few great tournaments I had, but I think more about the relationships and the people that I met along the way and the adventures I had. And I find myself telling more stories about those things than I do about a few of the mid-60s rounds I had back in the day.
Yeah, I think that goes through for anybody who's gone through that experience.
Yep, no doubt about it.
So
it's hard.
Your playing career, if I remember, was really going to another level. You were contending almost consistently at that high level, and it was like we're all waiting for you to crest that peak, right? To get your PGA Tour card, and you get to that comfort level, and it just goes higher. And you touched on it briefly, but that's kind of when life threw you a little bit of a curve, albeit a good one. And then you were offered the Stanford men's coaching job.
Exactly.
Can you kind of talk just a little bit more about that and kind of what? I remember, if I remember right, you were having a little bit of a struggle with, geez, I'm playing really good, and here's my dream on one hand, but now I've got this dream job offered to me on another.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a really, it sounds stressful for anyone, to me in my head, but anyone else is like, oh, tough duty, you play pro golf or be it's like no one's feeling sorry for me. But yeah, I'd established a really strong base in Hilton Head. I love the people there. I miss, even to this day, I know I miss seeing you and all my friends back there and and it was like, okay, I just did run. I was lucky enough to garner a start at the web.com or the nationwide event in Minnesota. The week I was offered the job, my native state, I ran top 5 in the tournament. And I was like, okay, if I keep doing this, I think I could definitely get out on tour. I started working with Todd Anderson about 18 months prior to that. And Todd, who now is, gotten more well known through his work with a bunch of guys on the PGA Tour. He really helped me a lot with my game, not to take away from any of the other lessons and help that I'd gotten along the way from people, but Todd kind of took me to a little bit of a different level with my hitting and understanding of how to shoot the best score every day. And so I joke with him when I see him today, because he's teaching one of my players now, actually. I said, dude, I wish I would have met you like 2 years earlier. I might not be coaching. But he's like, oh, you're way better out coaching. So anyway, but yeah, it was just at the time, it was a tough situation, because I knew how tough it was to become a head coach in the Pac-12. I respected that. I knew how lucky it would be to do it, let alone at your alma mater, and I was kind of torn. And so I did make the decision, obviously, to come coach, jump in, in the deep end as a coach as well, and take a new risk and a challenge. And I always thought to myself, if they fired me after a year, I could go back and play again. That's kind of the narrative I had going on in my head. And luckily, they never did. And we kind of started and got off to the races a little bit with the team, and the rest is history.
Well, you've won 2 national championships, one as a player and one as a coach. Now, I didn't do an in-depth research, but I think you're probably one of the only people that have done that.
There's been a few, but not many. Actually, one of the guys that did it is one of our old coaches here, a guy named Eddie Twiggs. I'm sorry, not Eddie Twiggs, but Bud Finger. Eddie was before Bud, but Bud was on a national championship team here at Stanford, and then won as a coach. But I feel lucky for that. I think it's a unique group. I've gotten asked a lot, like which of those 2 championships that I've been a part of means more.
That was the next question.
I think that's kind of the thing. It's like 2 sides of the coin. I think the one that we won in 2007 as a team and that I was coaching, it means the most probably to me, just because you definitely, I had my hand in 10 different guys that were part of that championship team that year, in the sense that you work with them all year long. There might be 5 guys at the finals, but there's 5 guys back on campus that have worked hard and tried to be part of that group. And to the story we had that year where we, in 07 or 2004 rather, when I started, we were ranked almost 100th in the country. We were pretty bad. And in terms of Stanford's perspective, there's a lot of great teams that are nowadays, it's anywhere in the top 100 is competitive, but at the time, our results were not great, and we went from that spot to winning in 2007 in 3 short years, and it was a big turnaround. And so I look back on those times, and it was really cool to be part of that and to kind of lay out a vision and try and get guys to buy into that and see if something special could happen.
Mm-hmm. So with so many kids, as we get into the kids now who are coming in the playing side, and Conrad the coach. So many kids coming in today that are so well prepared. What is your role as coach? Meaning, is it swing related? Is it training related? Do you time management with them, or do you kind of advise and all, or how do you what is a typical day like?
Well, I always tell people that I think on my business card I need to have the title, the acronym CBO. And that's where I think what I'm getting at is that's where I think my playing and coaching history serves me well. And that CBO stands for Chief BS Officer, actually. So What I mean by that is I think what our job as Stanford coaches, if we're recruiting great players, is that they have a system in place that works, and we want to find guys that have not played their best golf tournament yet, or have had their best golf in their lives yet, that are still on an upward trajectory. And in junior golf these days, actually, that number, if you look at the data, even it supports this, that there's only a sample of players that actually get a lot better when they're in college, and some of that's driven by kind of just focusing on results only. Some of that's driven by, maybe they find something else that they care more about in their lives. But what I feel like my job is to my guys is to basically be a sounding board, and I want to earn their trust in the sense that they can come to me and talk with me about anything in their lives, but most specifically in their golf. They have my trust. They have my trust in the sense that they can come to me. I have their trust that they respect what I have to say, and I don't really. I choose my words wisely. And what I'm getting at is that if a guy goes and gets a swing lesson, and his coach is giving him something that to me doesn't make sense with what I see every day on the course or in practice, I'm going to say something, and I'm going to be pretty direct about it. And vice versa. So it's almost like having a consultant in the space, or it's like having someone that's there just to help you and help guide you and keep you between the foul lines, if you will, a little bit. And so as a coach, the onus is on me to be well studied in the world of swing, well studied in the world of psychology, well studied in the world of nutrition. All of the things that go into being a great player. I think I owe it to my players to have a pretty good working knowledge of all of those things. And so that's really what I love about the job too, is that every day I show up, it's just something different. It might be, working on the program side and doing some fundraising for an hour. Then it might be going out to watch a guy hit some 5-irons on the TrackMan. And then it might be regripping a set of clubs. And then it might be managing some travel for the team. It's just always changing. And I think that's really over the years what's kept me super interested in what we're doing here, and just approaching it from that holistic angle.
Yeah, that kind of goes back to you as the person, where you enjoyed the travel of pro golf where most people didn't. You were seeing new things all the time, so it kind of goes to who you are, right?
Yeah,
and you're not getting bored. These kids are keeping you young, active. You got a lot to do. And it fits you perfect, and the results are obvious. I mean, it's a perfect match.
Well, I love the fact. I think I as I get older, I realize how lucky I am to have a job that I'm not bored at. A lot of my friends, they're super successful and have great paying jobs, but it's not stimulating for them to go in the office every day, Right. And for me, it's opposite of that. I love I don't know what I'm going to get, and that's why I love it so much, And granted, it's just golf and it's just a sport, but you're dealing with some pretty high power, high level kind of show ponies that you've recruited from all over the world. And these guys have a lot of horsepower in the sense that they're super academic, they're really sharp, they're very athletic, and they have high expectations during their time here. So it keeps me on my toes too, and my assistant as well.
Well, you're dealing with, like you just said, very accomplished student athletes. So kind of two questions, and this one is, how do you keep them motivated? And with the success that they have, how do you keep them humble?
Yeah. Well, both of those things are tough. That's the secret sauce, I think, for good college golf programs. I think.
I don't want you to give away any of your secrets.
No, I love it. I love talking about it. I think on the motivation side, I think some of that is intrinsic, right? Like, I think I'm definitely a growth mindset guy, and I think you can teach student athletes or help them understand in a better way what really motivates them, because I think some athletes don't even know, right? They don't even know why they're good at something, and that's a deep question, or why they love something. So that we try and drill into that a little bit. I think in college golf, one thing that I like relative to maybe the pro game is that I always felt when I was here as a player and as a coach, I've always preached this, that you're playing for something bigger than yourself. You're carrying that Stanford bag, and you're representing not just the other guys on the team, but you're representing your university, and it's something to be proud of. And so that's a great source of motivation oftentimes for our team. I've used kind of the line with our guys over the years, and I don't know where I heard this. I think Coach Goodwin maybe shared this with him, but I always liken a 4-year college golf experience is kind of a slow-moving train, and you jump on and see how much you can impact, the environment in your 4 years, and then you jump off, and it's going to keep on going down the track no matter who you are. And so, guys use that as, I have this window to make a difference type of thing. And, and on the humble side, it's Stanford's a place where it's really easy to be humble, actually, because there's just so many talented people around. Whether it's in the coaching circles, I go to coaches meetings and I look around and I'm just like, God, I got to get on my game here. The soccer coach is multiple coach of the year, and you've got Coach David Shaw standing up and sharing his views on stuff in the football side, and all these people that you just really look up to and you say, wow, they do a great job. And so it's not hard to be humble in that regard. And for our student athletes, it's the same thing. I mean, they might go to class and be sitting next to an Olympic medalist or a physicist that's going to win an award next week, or someone that's in a startup and working 40 hours a week while going to Stanford as an undergrad, type thing.
Yeah, it's an amazing place.
There's just a bunch of stuff here that keeps you grounded, and I think it's kind of the fabric of the university too. I think people like this entrepreneurial spirit and kind of thinking about what next challenge you have. I think if you are in an entrepreneurial mode, it's really difficult to be cocky or rest on your laurels, because you're always thinking about what do I have to do next, versus what I've done already.
Right. Yeah, that's. It like I said, it's a very interesting, awesome place. That culture has been there. It seems like from the beginning, it just keeps pushing. Not hard. It's just like you can't just achieve and then just sit back and say, okay, I've done this. Somebody's always kind of motivating you to do more.
You can't be complacent really in anything, and that especially holds true in golf. I love my old teammate Tiger for that. I think he's taken, obviously there's many a book been written about Tiger, but I think that the one piece that people haven't focused on enough is the fact that it just drives him crazy to be complacent, and yeah, has he made some, decisions that people question relative to his swing maybe, or relative to his personal life, all this stuff, but he doesn't rest on his laurels at all, and that to me is like one of the things that I respect the most about him, and the guys that are out there playing at the pro level the most, the guys that just keep pushing. So.
Yeah, it's always easy to criticize. There's a lot of armchair quarterbacks out there, right? Or armchair golf instructors. But like you said, the guy's always trying to improve, and he's going to do what he can to do so.
Yeah, exactly right.
Recruiting. How has recruiting changed since you were a student athlete and then since you became coach over a decade ago?
Well, that's a great question, actually. I think it's changed a ton. I think the biggest thing probably that comes to mind is just that it's sped up. I didn't even really think about college until my junior year or senior year in high school. Nowadays I've got my 6th grade daughter asking me about college, and she's not even an athlete, right? So I think that, well, I hope she is, I should add, but not yet at least. But so I guess the point is that it's sped up a lot, and I think you see that especially in our sport of golf, and I think parents nowadays have taken a way more active role, for better or worse, than they ever did. I mean, even the best players that I grew up around 20 plus years ago, your parents would drop you off at the course and pick you up after the round and say, how did you shoot? Instead of like out there caddying for you or keeping your scorecard or analyzing every shot that you have.
Is that something you take into the equation, so to speak, when you're looking at recruiting somebody? That aspect is because the parents, like you said, in today's world is completely different than it was 20 years ago.
Totally. I do. I think it's this fine balance, because you want to find great players that, you want to find horses. You need horses to win championships. But you also want to find the kids that are well balanced, and they can answer those questions about what they really love about playing. They're intrinsically motivated, and they do it because they want to do it, not because someone else says they should do it.
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard to find. I think that if a kid grows up in an environment where some of those things aren't in place, then it ends up being kind of a weird setup in a situation where they're not really being their best version of themselves ultimately when they have to kind of be in that environment on their own. So. But yeah, recruiting. I recruit the parents as hard as I recruit the kids. I think that no matter good, bad, or ugly, we're all products of our family dynamic, right? It thinks how, to me, it's what molds our thinking, our approach to life, what we love, what we don't love, what's important, what's not. And so for me, getting to know the parents and understanding their role in a student athlete's life is a big thing for sure.
In an individual sport like golf, how important is the team chemistry, and how does that factor in that recruit process? So it's individual, but it's also a team, right?
Right, it is. And I think the misnomer is that everyone has to be best friends, right? I think that team chemistry to me, I always talk about the scenario when we had Patrick Rogers and Cameron Wilson on the team. Arguably number one and number two, they were both nominated their senior year for the Hogan Award, and so they, here I've got two guys in the top 2 or 3 players in the country, totally different personalities. They respected each other, but they weren't best friends while they were here, and they figured out that, hey, they needed each other. And they were both great kids, or are great people. But they saw the world a little differently at times, and so, luckily that came together. I mean, Tiger and Notah, even they're at the time they were the same in college. Now they're good friends. But the point is that I think, there's a right mix to the chemistry that you have to create, and it changes every year. But it doesn't necessarily mean you're recruiting a bunch of guys that are all the same. Sometimes having a bunch of guys with different perspectives, but they all have a common goal, is even more powerful.
That how do you navigate that? Because the diversity of kids coming to Stanford, where you have a lot of kids from whatever their background is usually pretty homogeneous still in today's world, right? So,
right.
You were from Minnesota. I think Notah was from New Mexico, and you got, and even today, I mean, it's like that. So how do you coach around that, or how do you get these kids to blend so well when they're coming from such diverse backgrounds?
Yeah, I think you get decent at, and I'm still learning, but you also get better at thinking about the things that you really want to stick your stake in the sand on, if that makes sense. So you really have to pick your battles. I think understanding too culturally, like where each kid comes from and what their given culture sees as right or wrong, or good or bad, or I think I've done a better job over time understanding that. And I think the coaches that are good at that have diverse teams, really tap into that. And sometimes, it's just the perspective the kids, grew up around, is going to bother you. But if you have a little bit more of an open mind to some of the cultural differences early on, I think that helps you understand that every kid is kind of the same in the sense that they don't really know, and they're still evolving, and you can have an active hand in that, which is cool.
That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
When you're looking at young golfers, because they can all shoot 66 at a drop of a hat nowadays, what are some of the things that you look for? Or if there was a young golfer, say, out there in Minnesota or Texas or Pennsylvania, wherever they're from, that their dream is to play at Stanford, what should they be working on to make sure that they're good at, if they want to play at Stanford?
Well, I think the first part of the question is, and I've gotten more discipline in this, and this is about the only serious coaching advice that Coach Goodwin has given me over time, is he says, just find guys that you connect with, that you like, that you feel like you can coach, and you're going to have way more success than guys that maybe don't match up with that, even if they're higher ranked. And I think that's great advice. Mm-hmm. So I try and find first off, out of the gate, I don't even think about how good a player they are. I think, could I see myself or my team being around this guy for multiple days on end? Is he a guy that blends well with our personalities, and is he a good guy? Is he interesting? Does he have something to say? Is he, what are his characteristics? Those are all things I think about. I think nowadays too, the separator in junior golf is not necessarily the 66 that you mentioned. It's the days when you're actually playing badly, and how well you can manage a 75 into a 72 because you've made a couple greasy putts and you've hung in there, and you just know that you're ready for the next shot, instead of worrying about, oh my gosh, I'm having a horrible round in a important situation or something of that nature. So I think those kids shine through ultimately, and so it's really not about your good days, it's about your bad days. And I also think about, that's just not a physical thing, that's a mental thing. It's also too how you manage yourself in those tough situations. As you say, some kids, everyone, no matter how long you play golf, you're going to have ups and downs. And I think some kids that go through their junior years and maybe have like a really great sixth, seventh, eighth, ninth grade campaign, and then they dip and they struggle sophomore, junior year. Those kids are interesting to me too, because they've maybe fought their way out of a valley, and they're just going to continue to get better, and they figured some stuff out. Whereas a kid that's never had that kind of failure, if you will, before they get to college golf, and they layer in academics and maybe a new social dynamic and being away from home, all of a sudden that valley happens here, and it's a hard one to get out of, even if you have 4 years. So there's a lot that goes into and analyzing whether a kid is a match, and those are just a couple examples probably.
Yeah, that kind of goes to when you said earlier there was a big difference between amateur golf and pro golf. There's a big difference between high school golf and big-time Division I golf. And people used to ask me all the time about playing pro golf, and I say, well, are you married? Yeah, I'm married. And I say, okay, it's a difference between dating and being married, was the best analogy I could ever come up with, right? Because if you get in an argument when you're dating, you just go to your separate houses or your apartments or whatever, and you blow off the steam and you get back together. When you're married, you got to go into the same bedroom together and sleep, and so you have to learn how to talk and communicate and get over adversity, like you just said. And I think that when kids can learn that, like it's a great thing. And if they don't ever learn that young, it just gets harder as they get older.
Well, and I think that I think about too the question of, okay, so where do you fall when you think about kids playing multiple sports? And I think one of the big reasons I like kids playing multiple sports to a certain point is just what you're saying, is that I think you can learn some of those lessons in a team dynamic in high school or junior high that you described right there. You learn some of those lessons if you're around guys all the time versus being by yourself and only playing golf. I think there are some physical benefits too, and there's a lot of research that paints that way. But what you just mentioned is a big reason why I'm a proponent early on of at least having to be accountable to your teammates and people around you too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Stanford being, as we discussed, one of the most impressive institutions in the world, and the alumni it has and so forth. And you guys have obviously a very impressive list of alumni. Tiger, of course, Tom Watson. Then you get into the business world, so to speak, with Jerry, Scott McNeely, Charles Schwab. How do people like that, the alumni, help the golf program, whether it's mentoring these young kids or during their the collegiate career or even after in life in general?
Yeah, no, I think that's another good question. I mean, that's one of the things that we're super proud of. The network at Stanford is strong, right? We have a bunch of great team supporters, really in Silicon Valley and then really all around the world too. People that have gone on to do great things, and for me, it's all of the above. I try and expose my guys to those people early on, and we have a practice facility here at Stanford that is a really neat dynamic too. We have supporters that are able to use our practice space by virtue of their support of the program, which is really neat. And we invite them as our guests, and so because of that, there's often these in-between windows outside of team practice where they'll have interaction with people that are making making some real waves in the business world or in medicine or wherever they might be. And that also is a skill set for, I think, young college players to go through, is just interacting with people, with peers and with people that are successful. I think there's a skill set there, and having the courage and confidence to do that is something that I think our kids learn. But I think all the above. We actually, one of the cool programs we've launched with our program over the last couple of years is we have a thing called the STAMP mentoring program, which is kind of an organic, team-driven young alumni mentoring program where we invite some of our young alums in the area just to come in quarterly and meet with the team. We usually have a featured speaker, someone in business or some other dynamic other than golf. And our team can interact and see and ask questions with young guys that have just recently been through it. And that's been powerful too, because there's been a lot of great relationships that have been built in that. And you kind of feel like you're part of something a little bit bigger than yourself as you're out there walking down the fairway in your own head in a qualifying round, so
that's awesome. Cause not all the kids are, there's how many Tiger Woodses are there in the world, right? There's only so many, and introducing these kids to people that are in the business world is just awesome, that they can see, hey, there is another avenue just outside of golf, but golf has gotten me to this point, or helped.
That's what I love about and on the flip side of that, I think the young alumni and people around the program, when they're around the team, they get a lot out of it too, because A, they think they're helping, but B, they also realize it's a great reminder of how important golf has been in their lives to get to where they're at, and I think that whether they're, CEOs or young business people or doing something cool and in the lab, I mean, they still hold true to this fact that golf is a big part of it. I think one of the best quotes that one of our alums, Tom Watson's, ever dropped is, golf is a game of a lifetime. And there's no doubt about that, because I think if it's in the right spot in someone's repertoire, it can really serve you well in so many ways.
Yeah, absolutely. So with such, the Stanford program is so well established and respected. Are there any traditions that you've maintained to this day that were started, decades ago?
Don't
ask how I came up with that question. I'm just,
yeah.
I don't know. I just thought it would be that you guys, well-established traditions and so forth. Is there anything that you guys that you've maintained as the present coach?
Yeah. One thing that we give out annual awards every year. One thing that comes to mind is we have an award called the Spoonie Award. That's kind of a cool award that guys look forward to. And it's actually kind of a rite of passage. We're on that first road trip and a couple of young guys are out, and the seniors start they push their plate away at dinner and say, okay, now it's time for Stanford golf trivia. And usually the first thing out of their mouth is, okay, freshman, what's the Spoonie Award? And they wide-eyed and they have no idea. So they have to go back to to do some research, and they're not going to be put on the spot again. But that's one that comes to mind. Basically, the Spoonie Award for us is an award that the very first team I coached here came up with. And the story's kind of funny, but basically it's like our first road trip. We're back in the Midwest somewhere. Everyone's trying to get to know everyone. Dinner, you can imagine kind of how much goes on over food, with college boys and post round, and that's really the time that you get to spend together and talk and get to know each other and tell stories and laugh and joke and stuff. But dessert came out, and there was this huge sundae that one of the kids had ordered, and I was still pretty hungry. So me, Pete, I haven't missed many meals, so I reach across the table with this big spoon, and I hit the ice cream running, and the spoon bent like a piece of hot butter. The thing, literally the spoon bent in half. And you want to talk about some guys rolling on the floor laughing so hard. And I just gotten done over dinner telling them how they have to be tough, and they have to show a lot of tenacity and work hard for what they want and go after what they can get, and all this stuff. And then this spoon, in one short moment, it was kind of the perfect metaphor for my message. So anyway, unbeknownst to me, fast forward with the captain at the time, Zach Miller, who I love like a son. It's probably the only bad thing he's ever done in his life, but he had literally stole the spoon. So he stuck it in his pocket. And at the end of the year, the seniors come in and they say, hey, coach, we've come up with a new award that we want you to award annually for the player that exhibits the most grit and tenacity and hard work, and we're going to call it the Spoonie Award. So it was this box that they had created with red velvet, and in it is this spoon bent in half. So
that's awesome.
So that's yeah. So I'll probably answer you by saying the Spoonie Award is one that we'd love to continue on.
Yeah, I'm in 3 or 5 years when we sit down and have a beer, catch up again. I'm anxious to see or hear some more stories about the Spoonie Award.
Well, and you know what's funny about that award? If you looked at the winners of that award, not all of our guys have been successful, but they're guys within our program that their peers would say, yeah, that's a guy that really drove the needle for us over the course of their time here. And so that's cool to look back on that list and just think about who those people are and what they're up to and how they were leaders amongst their peers, which just makes me feel good.
That's awesome. Just a few more, because I know you got kind of short on time. What would Coach Conrad Ray say to the 19-year-old student player Conrad Ray? How would you coach yourself back then?
I like that one. I like that one a lot. I tell him to get in the gym. You know, that's one thing. I guess I was in a different era. You know, I was an old football player. You know, ordering 3 or 4 cheeseburgers at McDonald's was not a big deal. You know, crush those. And I think I held myself back at times, looking back at my playing career too, because I wasn't fit enough. So that's something that I've tried to change in my life now. It's still a work in progress, and my wife reminds me of that all the time. But
tell her it's her fault
you
for
know,
being
just
such a good cook.
Push yourself away from the table, get in shape, understand how important fitness is and playing well. That's one thing. I'd say don't ever change your thumbprint. And what I mean by that is I see a lot of golfers have a perception of what they should be doing with their golf ball and with their golf swing, instead of owning what they do already at this level and just honing in on making it better. And I really do think that at a certain point, your golf swing becomes like your thumbprint. It's really unique. And I learned that the hard way, I guess, maybe playing the mini tours, because every time I'd go to a mini tour event and I'd look down the range, there were some guys with beautiful swings, but they couldn't play dead in a Western. And the guys with funky swings were making all the money. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, I think that still holds true, even in the world of TrackMan. And, you know, you go walk the range of the PGA Tour, not everyone swings it the same. And there's a misperception there that you have to do it one way or a certain way. And I think that lesson is something that young college guys could really, really take hold. And I know for me, I always, you know, I just hated the fact that I couldn't hit a draw, as an example. And so I worked for years and years and years to be able to hit a high draw instead of being really good at a low fade, you know. And I think I crossed the wires at times. So those may be a couple morsels that I would share with my younger self.
What does success look like each year for the Stanford golf team?
Yeah, it's a deep one. That's really deep. Gosh, I mean, for me as a coach, I think I don't want to say I've softened, because I'm as competitive as the day is long, and winning championships is like the ultimate goal. But I think that by how we measure success here needs to be based on the process and the work that we do to get there, not necessarily the end game or the end prize. And so I would say that's my answer. I think that, you know, we got to be focused on the process, not product. And measuring success too, for me, is guys that are finishing at Stanford with having really matured a lot, both physically and mentally, still loving golf, which is hard to do after 4 years of Division I athletics and the work and toil that it takes to be good. And someone that leaves here just in love with Stanford more than when they came. And those are 3 things that I think are kind of my job too, to make sure happen. And so that's probably how I'd measure success on my end too.
Yeah, I would agree 100%. It's not did you achieve X? It's where did you start, and then how far have you come? Right. And then if you reach that pinnacle, that's like a cherry on top. So you and I, it's probably why we're still friends to this day.
Yeah. Well, and it's hard too, because I lose sleep sometimes. You know, it's like, gosh, the team needs to play better. You know, we just finished 6th and we should have finished 2nd. You know, all that stuff. It's really easy in the moment to get caught up in, And like I said early on in our talk today, is just like we've got a team that in this situation today, we've got a team that's doing all the right things, working the right way. They're close. They're having fun. Our rankings may be lower than they want or I want, but we got to keep our eye, be true to ourselves and say, hey, the results will come if we just focus on the right things.
Right. What would you like your legacy to be when it's all said and done? You and your wife are going to retire. You move back to Hilton Head. What would you like your legacy at Stanford to be?
That might not be too far away. No, I feel like I'm getting older, but I definitely have more coaching in front of me. I love it, and I just don't see myself doing anything else. But the legacy at Stanford probably would be a coach that players felt like if they look back on it, that wasn't necessarily the easiest on them times, but it was coming from a place of, okay, this guy's trying to help me get better. And, so, in terms of the game piece, I think having that relationship, I look back on my time with the coaches I've had, and the guys I remember the most are the people that at times I wanted to not even look at. I was so angry at them or was frustrated with them, but they also are the guys that helped me understand things that maybe I couldn't see at the time. And I wouldn't mind being recognized as that guy. I also want to be probably thought of as a guy that somehow figured out how to be a good coach and a good person and a good dad and a good husband. I mean, I'm with 3 girls at home. I realize how, I respect the coaches, peers of mine that have been able to be great family men and be a great dad and also have a work-life balance that makes sense and still are competitive. That's an art form. So those would probably be a couple things I'd answer you with.
Yeah, I think those are all very high, and it's no wonder why you're so well-respected and you have so many friends, and I'm glad to call you one of mine. And no surprise,
thanks, Pete.
You are where you are.
Well, congrats on all the work you're doing too. All the stuff you're putting out there for people to consume and think about getting better is adding to the spice of life. And appreciate all those good times we had, like we said, back in Hilton Head, trying to beat each other's brains in at Old South. So
I've got a couple rapid fire. If you got just a couple minutes left.
Sure, you bet.
All right, I'll give you the hardest one first. Tiger or Jack?
Oh, that's the easiest one. I mean, I love Jack. My email address at Stanford that I still have today. I haven't told many people this, but I was the first freshman class, and this is not rapid fire answer. I get it, but I got to tell you a story.
It's okay.
First freshman class at Stanford to use campus-wide email, and I was such a Jack Nicklaus fan that my username at Stanford is nicholas@stanford.edu, and I still have not changed that today. I have an alias for my full name, but
it's
that
not
was
going to
go over well
before I
with
met
your former
Tiger.
teammate.
Yeah, no, I just think to me, for different reasons, but I think Tiger's the guy that changed the game as we know it, and to be part of that and to see it firsthand and to know him and to appreciate him as a person. I think sometimes that all gets misconstrued a little bit, and I feel lucky to be able to have that seat.
Cool. Yeah, I thought you'd answer that way. it's
easy one. Easy one. Yeah.
Easy one. If you had to play one course the rest of your life, which one would it be?
Ooh, I like that one. I'd say Stanford's up there. Can I answer with 3? That's not rapid fire.
Sure, we'll go top 3. I'll let you off the hook.
Yeah, top 3. I think I'd have to say Stanford, Austin, Minnesota, Austin Country Club, which is a great course. If you're driving down Interstate 90 and you're heading west and you're like, I want to stop for some golf, stop there. And then probably Cypress Point.
Yeah, that one's tough to beat.
Yeah.
If you were go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, on a good day, Cypress Point, with the seals barking and the waves crashing and the greens fast, you can't beat it.
Yeah, and if you make a triple, you're standing out on that point, and just like, who cares? Okay, look at where I am.
And it doesn't beat you up like some of the. I mean, that's the thing I love about Cypress is I've never, even on the hardest day, I've never left there saying, "Wow, that was impossible." It's always fair and fun.
If you weren't a golf coach, you would be a what?
Oh, I don't know. I don't know. I'd probably be a businessman of some sort. the art of the deal, whether it's recruiting and managing your salary cap / scholarship money, or I think I'd probably be in business somewhere.
Okay. Cavity back or blade?
The 44-year-old version of myself or the 18-year-old version. I still like to play. I'm not afraid to tell you I use cavity backs. So get the
Easy
ball
enough.
up in the air.
It's at 40 and older. Like you said, over 40, cavity back.
Yeah, I know.
Who would be in your dream foursome?
I'd say my dad for sure.
Mm-hmm.
He's a guy that's just been, he's been a guy that's been my mentor, my friend, started me in the game. I'd probably pick Tiger, my dad, and who's the fourth? I'd probably say, this is kind of sound random, but my grandpa Ivan, who's passed away. But I keep it close to home with my family and let them get a chance to see Tiger play up close and personal. That's probably what I'd pick.
Yeah, I don't think anyone in your position would say anything different.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are envious that they wish they could say that. A couple more.
It'd be cool. Yeah.
Caddy or cart?
Caddy for sure.
Mm-hmm.
I think oftentimes in a cart, but if I had to pick it and play myself, it's a caddy. Yeah.
Cool. And then the last one, if you could have one mulligan in golf or life, what would it be? If you even needed one.
Yeah, gosh. You probably can tell I don't look in the rearview mirror a whole lot, but one mulligan. I don't think I need one, man. I'd say that. I don't want that to sound like I haven't made mistakes, but I think, the way I approach life is that all those mistakes are things I've learned from. And, I don't know that I'd do anything different, but it's a good question.
Cool. Hey, Conrad, this has been awesome. I can't thank you enough for the time. I'm sure the people out listening, the kids who are going to want to play there, everyone is going to appreciate all the nuggets, the gold information you've given them. Best to you guys and the team. This spring. Hope you bring home another trophy, national championship.
Well, thanks, Pete. It's been an honor to be with you, and congrats on all you're doing, and hopefully sharing some of these things will help someone down the road. So
yeah, hopefully
thanks for
we
the
can
opportunity.
Do it again. All right.
Yeah, I would love to do it.
You have a good one. Thanks, buddy. All right, everybody. Thank you so much for listening to today's show. If you enjoyed it, you can find more information on today's episode and other topics at golf360.blog. There you'll find the show notes and links related to this episode, as well as any other episode that we've done so far to date. If you're interested in improving your game and would like to learn more from yours truly by taking a private lesson, a half-day or multi-day school, club or putter fitting, you can reach me through the blog site or by email, pete@golf360.blog. So some of you may be asking, what is the golf paradigm? All you have to do is click on the homepage while on my blog site to discover how you can start playing better than you ever thought possible. Or you can simply sign up, again, on the blog page for my instructional videos where I give regular tips on all areas of the game to include the swing, club design and fitting, health, fitness and nutrition, the mental aspects, and equally as important, the integration of all those things together. I'm also on social media, and you can find me at The Golf Paradigm. That's PARADIGM. And I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel, also under the same name, The Golf Paradigm. Facebook is usually the best way to reach me for questions and or comments, and I look forward to hearing what all of you have to say.